Howdy folks, I'm Southern Wolf of Southern Wolf Studios. Welcome to the finale of Samurai of Hyuga Book 1. Let's check out our stats. Well, unfortunately, it seems that our stats are unavailable. Chapter 14, The Devil Who Kills Demons. I woke up coughing my lungs out at the base of Shiroyama's stairs. Hardly any time had passed since my layover in the spirit realm. Toshi rushed to my side to help me regain my footing. She gave me a look in half confusion and half in fear. I didn't need a mirror. I could see the golden reflection of my eyes in hers. Okami-san, your body shook violently in a series of convulsions. The kunoichi panted heavily, still winded from our tumble down the staircase. Are you okay? Were you able to communicate with Hashimoto-san? I wasn't sure whether or not I should nod or shake my head. I met Mitsumi alright, but I was far from okay. I steadied myself and placed my hand atop the hilt of my katana. The stingray skin wrapping melted into my hand like a glove. It was warm to the touch and comforting, like a mother's embrace. Calculated. You're gonna want to move, Toshi. I pushed her aside as gently as I could in this frenzied focus, this controlled chaos, this serene rage. It was a contradiction, but it was all I had to rely on. I had to finish this, and I had to hurry. I charged upwards while the familiar laughing echoed down at me. It was a mishmash of raspy f and other taunts I couldn't decipher. The sounds muffled together until eventually I went deaf. One of the principles of the Jogoku Itoru was the elimination of distractions. And there was a distraction of the physical sort in front of me. The frog-like bastard with the blowgun who shot Hachi in the back at the gambling den. He was the reason my drinking buddy spent last night on his death futon sipping poppies instead of sake. I licked my lips with anticipation. How did I kill this guy? I struck him down with a single strike. There was no need to embellish the act. I came upon him quickly and nearly tripped, though I had caught myself mid-stumble. Fighting on inclines was an area of combat I needed to study. Luckily, there was no better instructor than the frightened Yakuza in my path. This was a numbers game, and while I was no scholar, I knew the arithmetic of combat. The Hyugan blowgun is a remarkable weapon accurate out to about 30 feet. Any good samurai could cover that distance in about 4 seconds, and a good ronin, half that. I was close enough to him to see him suck in air behind his oversized bamboo pipe. He was scared and frightened. He'd aimed for my chest for the highest chance of a hit. I jerked my shoulder sideways at the last moment and felt wind as the dart grazed by. My legs ran right by him without a pause, but my arms lashed out my katana in an upward arc. It slid through him from between his legs all the way up to his chin. He gulped in a way I imagine a frog would, then collapsed and tumbled down. I continued my way to climb up to Shiroyama. Kill him, you insufferable idiots! Shiroyama's lisping command sounded off as I made my approach. The fear in her tone drove my sandals faster forward. Tattooed men with outstretched arms and empty eyes poured over me in a torment. They were mindless, and they had to be to throw away their lives like this. I was no stranger to desperation in the heat of battle. The courageous bonsai charge of men and women fighting for their lord and clan roared out with a final cry. But these men I cut down were distinctly silent in their last moments. Although criminals, they had earned a suicide more honorable than this. When the bloody mist had settled, only one hulking figure remained between myself and my target. A shivering giant coated red with the blood of his comrades. His name, if I recalled correctly, was Daisuke. Character interaction failed. He rushed down on me with all the grace of a one-legged Usuri brown bear. I knew how this was going to end, between the corpse of a Yakuza and the steps laden with their freshly poured blood. Daisuke was destined to slip. His footing failed him just as I expected, and he fell on his back with his face up against my katana's edge. He would have been able to get an attack in if he kept his eyes open. Had the oversized door guard sought to kill me, I would have gotten trampled. I might not have been quick enough to react. Not after killing slews of Yakuza drones, but I'd never get to know. And Daisuke would never see another sunrise, depending on what I decided. Some folk don't have it in them to kill. Consider it a blessing, and consider yourself unemployed. Attunement has increased. Some folk don't have it in them to kill. Consider it a blessing, and consider yourself unemployed. I'd seen it before in fresh samurai recruits, bushi boys I like to call them. They were trained with wooden swords in dojos, and when it came to an actual battle with sharp steel, they'd freeze up. Years of training rendered useless because they lacked the crucial desire, just like Daisuke here. Alright, I swear I won't forget this. The giant gathered himself and took off in heavy strides. From the way he fought to the way he ran, I could tell he'd never take up arms again. Unlike his foul-mouthed superior Nishi, there was a chance he'd actually repent and find a better life. Not a good chance, mind you, but a chance all the same, and that was more than what most folks got. My attention returned to the original target, Unfortunately, Shiroyama hadn't the decency as a hostess to wait for my arrival. Her ornate throne was pushed aside, revealing a hallway still deeper within the mansion. From out of the entrance came a scent as thick as any smog, sweet and floral with a bitter aftertaste. Breathing it in was like eating a flower. Just as I thought I was done with the boss's lackeys, a tall man in a karate uniform emerged from the entrance. The golden gleam from the cobra statues cut shadows all over his chest and face, making him appear as if he was chiseled out of stone. "Hachi," I let out a breath, "don't make me do this." The man charged with his eyes stretched wide and his fists held back for a powerful uppercut. I was the last person who could blame him for falling victim to the grease of his gaze, but I was now up against a martial artist who I wouldn't be able to kill. Not because I couldn't, but because, amongst other things, protective. He was my friend. Smack him. There was a possibility that knocking some sense into Hachi, literally speaking, might bring him back to reality. Hopefully I wouldn't have to resort to choking the poor fellow out. Non-lethal methods weren't exactly my specialty. Hachi's visit to the spirit world might end up being a permanent stay. Although I hadn't seen the Street Fighter throw a kick, he had powerful legs all the same. Those legs closed the distance between us fast, and I was barely able to avoid the dangerous, if not obvious, uppercut. I brought my hand across only to have it grab mid-slap. Hachi had managed to get me prone with himself on top of me, his heavy frame pushed down over my lighter one, his hands clenched into mine which were still wet with blood. He started speaking as his dilated eyes bore into my golden ones. "Okami, she said I could have everything, all the sake I want. I could rebuild the Raigenju dojo." He spoke with a frantic enthusiasm. I could even have Momoko-chan, or anyone." I could also hardly breathe with his weight atop my lungs. I couldn't reach my katana, not in this position. As the deep-seated fear of death crept in, did I resort to Sensei's technique? Was there no other option than losing my mind and spirit to become the ultimate weapon? "Shiroyama," Hachi yelled ecstatically, "can give me anything! Anything, Okami!" "Is that so? What about Tonkun?" "Is that so? What about Tonkun?" I could barely get the words out with my strained breath, but the name forced Hachi to blink, which made his eyes return to their natural luster. The strength of his arms faded as I continued. "Can Shiroyama bring your friend back from the dead, Hachi? Her opium, it killed him. Does that mean nothing to you?" The Jinjinto native fell off me and curled up into a fetal position. His body shivered as I regained my breathing and footing. My right hand idled towards the hilt of my katana, ready for a sudden attack. Thankfully, that never came. "Okami, what'd she do to me? What is she?" Hachi punched the ground in frustration. I understood his anger. Being used like a puppet and trapped inside your own body was a certain kind of hell. No matter your motives or creed or oath, that insatiable greed numbed and poisoned your resolve. "Shiroyama's an Oni," Toshi answered. The ninja approached with an ample amount of caution, and I didn't blame her. She witnessed my display of bloodshed firsthand. She looked at me as I wiped the blood from my brow. "Okami-san, are you?" Finesse. "Want to know if I've gone insane? That's not important." I replied in a low growl just like a wolf, which brought back that horrifying memory. "The kid. Where's Mitsumi? Why isn't she with you?" Whatever was left of my composure just died. The plan was to keep the girl safe, damn it! The Kunoichi detailed the plan as quickly as she could, yet I could hardly pay attention. I was in a frenzy. My mind was both packed and empty with 100 different thoughts. The last connection you two shared over breakfast was back at the dojo. Hashimoto-san had to return to where the link... I held in my hand caked with dried blood. I've had too many brushes with death for a summer's afternoon. Too many encounters with demons for a lifetime. I should be halfway out of the city gates by now, back to a careless and stress-free life of a wanderer. The Okami I knew would have left these fools to their certain deaths, not lead them to it. But when Hachi spoke up and asked, my feet and my resolve stood firm. "What's the plan, Okami?" "Bring the Jinjinto City Guard. We're gonna need them to clean up the mess that I'm about to leave behind." "Bring the Jinjinto City Guard. We're gonna need them to clean up the mess that I'm about to leave behind." Hachi nodded. "I know a few fellows on patrol right now. Looks like most of the Yakuza have already turned tail and run. Whatever you did down there must have left an impression. Cleaning up those corpses would be no easy task, but with the amount of gold embedded into the Shiroyama's estate, I'm sure they'd be up to it. Bringing them in meant increasing the city's treasury tenfold. The consequences of that were well beyond my concern. But what did concern me, and I, Toshi interjected, "will check on Hashimoto-san. I'm sure she's safe." The ninja read my mind. The fear and bundled up concern fell from my face. Of course the kid was safe. What happened in the spirit world didn't matter in the real one. At least that's what I told myself. I was about to head off when Hachi handed me a slip of paper. "Take it. Mitsumi-chan wanted me to make sure that you had it for, the boss fight. The final battle, you know? I have no idea what it does, but she mentioned something about a koi fish." Charming. I took it and stuffed it safely within my kimono. The only final battle is the one I lose, and I have no intention of losing. The sound of heavy rain pattered against the glass ceiling above. It was a breathtaking feeling to be beneath a rainstorm without getting wet. Even more astonishing was the sea of red flowers before me. The hallway opened up into a gigantic garden nestled between the mansion's white rooftops. I spotted Momoko off to the side at a table, writing feverishly fast. Piles of scrolls and measuring utensils surrounded her like a nest. The source of the thick, sweet aroma came from the boiling cauldron beside her. So this is where Shiroyama's fortune gets made, I thought to myself. How did you defeat my Shingenja? A voice barked out from across the field of poppies. The tension I felt in my chest loosened as the realization came to me. An Oni, a demon who shouldn't exist, stuttered in fear of my presence. I walked ahead with a newfound swagger. Protective. Your Shingenja. Wrong on both accounts, I chuckled. Hachi is one of my crew, and he can't even spell, let alone cast them. My approach was slow, but intentionally so. I wanted Shiroyama's fear to stew around inside her mind. I wanted the anxiety to seep into her bones like the poison she had given to so many others. And when her spirit of greed was fully soaked, I would set it aflame. Her kimono slipped down to her ankle. Her neck twisted and extended upwards, and her arms did as well. Her fingers contorted and morphed. Her painted nails turned to tongues. Her outstretched limbs hissed, flesh-colored snakes. 10 vipers spouted from each arm, hissing and flailing. You could have lived a life of luxury, Ronin, Shiroyama hissed in the chorus of her snakes. Anything you desired could have been yours. How could you refuse to become my pet? Attunement. I felt a presence inside me whose heart beat in rhythm with mine. An animal, but not just any. Mine. Snow Monkey. You look better with that kimono on. Trust me. You look better with that kimono on. Trust me. Even after the swarm of Yakuza, my feet felt light. I should have been aching in pain in my knees from Momoko's rescue attempt, but instead I felt warmth. It wasn't anything like opium's numbness or an alcohol buzz. It was different. It was a serene sort of calmness. My purpose felt as clear as the lines my eyes etched into Shiroyama's skin. I don't want to say I put on an acrobatic performance, but I did. Twirling and rolling, dancing around vipers, bending my back in ways it shouldn't be able to bend. I did all those things. I slid about the battlefield with an ease I'd never felt before. I drew out my katana in a flurry of careless slashes, yet each hit true. I'd fought intoxicated on more than one instance before, but this was something else. I flew in moments, rolled me underneath the Oni's bare chest, which I climbed up. I proceeded up her lengthy neck using my katana as a pick to support my weight. My thoughts were so fickle and sporadic, yet I kept climbing until my eyes met the serpent's gaze. Her tongue lashed out at me and I gave her my arm. Clenched in my fist was a talisman that blurred the air around it. Natsumi's koi cooker created a heat that burned the body from the inside out. I stuffed it down the Oni's throat as deep as my arm would allow. Her veins collapsed on my half-eaten appendage, which took all the strength I had to pry free. Then the skittish feeling ended. Gravity in the ground beneath took over. I fell and slammed my head against a bed of now-dead poppies. In that moment where my neck might have cracked, I heard whistling chirps. The tweeting sounded off in a strange sort of melody which left as quickly as it came. I'm impressed, you red-faced monkey. Now if I was only that flexible in bed. An untimely growl erupted in my stomach of all places. I couldn't help it. Burning snakes smelled just like chicken. I was able to stand using my katana as a support, my body hurting yet somehow still going. As my heart hammered against my chest, I witnessed Shiroyama's final moments. Her snake fingers coiled and shivered, no longer making their venomous sound. The flesh from her face slipped off, only to be replaced with another layer of shining wet. Her body did the same. The snake demon was shedding. She screamed out even as her lips began peeling off of her mouth. Fools! Shiroyama hacked out along with buckets worth of blood. The bounds will be your undoing. Those words that would be her last accompanied a series of unintelligible screams. I looked at her as her bones became more pronounced, as her body dried up and shrunk into a husk. The ground beneath the Oni burned as well, poppies fuming and spreading fire like kindling. It was only a matter of moments before the opiate smoke became a toxic gas. I didn't have time to give the customary Shinto prayer, not even my abridged version. I held up my katana to the heavens before I struck the final blow. Satsuma sends his regards! Satsuma sends his regards! Heavens, hells, great beyonds. I was overdosing on spiritual enlightenment as of late. I'd spoken to spirits both in dreams and reality. I'd been consumed by my own greed and controlled like a puppet, yet I managed to redeem myself. These lofty, unimaginable feats ought to be what my thoughts lingered on, but as my blade chopped her neck in half, I could only think one thing. The Emperor picked the right Ronin for the job. I was expecting a gush of blood, snake human or otherwise, but instead I took a mouthful of black spew. The vapors rushed into my throat and stung all the way down. I felt a slight pain in my chest. The demon's final attack, it seemed, was indigestion. But the heartburn would leave along with my life if I stood here. The field of poppies burnt out white smoke that drifted about like a fog. I placed my bloodied sleeve against my nose. I had to get myself and the doctor out of here. Momoko hadn't taken a step away from her desk. She was too focused on her papers. Ugh. I let out a disgruntled sigh. My spectacular battle had gone without any spectators. No one was going to believe me about what my spirit did, except maybe Toshi. No, she's a true believer and that didn't really count. I shook the doctor out of her gaze and got her attention. I was never happier to see the doe eyes of hers no longer enlarged and dilated. Okami-san. Charming. While your work ethic is admirable, we've got to get out of here. I yanked her shoulder away from their desk, but was met with a surprising amount of resistance. I can't leave without my papers. Much of this opiate research belongs to my mentor. This is his legacy. I can't let Matsuo Fuji's work burn. Ugh. Let her collect her research. I cursed under my breath. Hurry up already! I was starting to feel numb and my head was growing lighter by the second. I watched as the frantic doctor collected a pile of scrolls, some with detailed illustrations. Momoko's reverence for her teacher reminded me of someone. I could only hope Matsuo Fuji's legacy turned out to be better than Sensei's. My patience ran out along with the feeling in my fingers. I grabbed Momoko by the wrist and made her escape. I couldn't wait to leave this poison garden behind once and for all. We ran and kept running, out of the hallway and down the stairs. We nearly took a tumble on some of my previous handiwork. The problem with Yakuza corpses is that they're so often shirtless and the bloody pools wouldn't soak up. Even though I ran like a crazy drunkard, I somehow managed to keep my footing. I only felt safe from the fumes when we reached the golden sake fountain. It had nothing to do with my sudden thirst for alcohol. Before I indulged, I looked around for enemies and imagined myself as a deer at a watering hole. There were no tattooed men or women remaining, only Shiroyama's servants scurried about. I had half my head dunked when Hachi arrived with the captain of the guard. Dozens of daytime defenders poured in, marveling at the sight of Shiroyama's ballroom. Some of them even lost their lunch after seeing the corpses dismembered across the stairs. They were useless as fighters, but the fighting was over. You're the leader of this undertaking, I'm guessing," the gruff captain inquired, skeptical as he had every right to be. I broke out into a smile and had to hold back a laugh. Me a leader? Just a month ago I was a lone wanderer without a care in the world. I pulled my head out of the sake's embrace. The locks of hair that escaped my top knot clung to my face, and the cuts on my forehead and cheeks stung and bled. With my hurried breathing and beast-like expression, I wasn't surprised that the captain winced back in fear. I answered him with a grin fit only for an oni. Something like that. My grin and spirit died when I saw Toshi's figure stumble inside. She was drenched in the pouring rain, breathing ragged gasps of air as if they were her last. When the Kunoichi looked at me, she only had the breath to voice a single name. I ran out the door as fast as my feet could carry me. Junko. How could I be so careless? A brown-haired ronin with a scar down her eye. That's what Iguchi said back at the Canary. I was so busy with Yakuza and opium and broads jumping off bridges to pay Junko any mind. I was so focused on the Emperor's snake spirit that I ignored the monster who could chase after me like a starving wolf. I retraced my steps and took them 3 at a time through the empty streets. The afternoon sun hid beneath the clouds that cried out in the rare summer rain. The stifling Jinjinto heat was gone, but in its place dread threatened to suffocate me. I could see Matsumi's face. I could see it haunting me like the faces of so many others. She was an annoying brat who was sick more often than not. Hashimoto's daughter, hopelessly sheltered from the cold and harsh truths of Hyuga. A Shingenja with a big brain and even bigger heart. Bodyguarding a kid like that was asking for trouble. I arrived at the Raigenju dojo and my heart ached. It ached at what I might find inside there. The body of a child cut to pieces as red as her kimono. An innocent girl's life cut short of a crime of befriending a ronin like me. If I had memorized any prayers, I would have said them. But I didn't. So I entered the dojo and left my regrets behind. Oh, speak of the devil, Matsumi-chan. The training hall was dark aside from the gleaming of rusted steel. Glistening tears, too. A pair of streaks down Matsumi's face as she trembled behind the blade. The ronin who spoke laughed manically, each huff swaying the katana dangerously close to the kid's neck. My throat was dry and my voice was gone, and it was up to Junko to fill the silence. We were just talking about you, love. The devilish smirk that I'd known for years appeared on her face. She blinked and the golden eyes of the Jugoku flashed. Her voice darkened, her tone wicked. You know, Okami-kun, seeing you all worked up like that, over a kid like this. Junko pressed the blade closer. My heart stopped and her voice continued. Well, it's enough to make me jealous. She leaned over to whisper something into Matsumi's ear. Time itself had gone still as I memorized the face of my undersized employer, that cute and angry pout, those chubby cheeks and their childish dimples. those long-winded explanations and the constant complaints. I'd give anything to hear them again. Anything for another day, another chance. Anything to stop that blade from moving as it slashed across Matsumi's neck. Sayonara, kid. This completes Samurai of Hyuga Book 1. If you like this series, make sure you check out the link below to pick it up for yourself. And as always, make sure you hit that like button. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure you do that as well. And I'll see you all next time.